In Las Vegas, under the lights, Magomed Ankalaev came in as champion, calculated, composed, confident. But in under 2 minutes, that composure shattered. He was overwhelmed, ground down, and forced out by Pereira's relentless assault. This story isn't about mysticism, it's about cracks in the armor. What failed on Ankalaev's side, and how did Pereira exploit everyone? Ankalaev entered this fight with the confidence of a man who dethroned Pereira just months ago. At UFC 313, he won via unanimous decision, using pressure, grappling clinches, and control to neutralize Pereira's striking. Many believed Pereira was underperforming. It was clear. Win again by doing what worked. Use feints, level changes, clinch pressure, force Pereira to fight in uncomfortable positions. But entering into a rematch, he also had to account for Pereira's adjustments. The margin for error was smaller, and for Ankalaev, any decline or mistake wouldn't just cost. That stunned Ankalaev early. At that moment, Ankalaev's reaction options narrowed: reset, clinch, or get aggressive. He chose to shoot for a takedown. That was the first turning point. Pereira's takedown defense held. Ankalaev's double leg drive failed, and when he tried to scramble, Pereira took top position. From that dominant top control, the ground and pound began. Hammer fists, elbows, short punches, and Ankalaev had no answer. The referee intervened just 1:20 into round 1. The fight was over. But why did Ankalaev's plan collapse so fast? The answer lies not just in Pereira's execution, but in what Ankalaev didn't adjust. Analysts speculated, supported by post-fight commentary, that Ankalaev showed signs of being off rhythm. In the first fight, Pereira claimed he was hindered by injuries, including a stress fracture in his tibia and sickness in camp. If Pereira was underweight in March, Ankalaev may have over-prepped, expecting a different opponent. Now, facing a fully healthy Pereira, the pace, power, and urgency were magnified. Ankalaev also seemed hesitant when the fight got chaotic. In the rematch, he rushed takedown attempts instead of controlling pace. That impatience opened him to devastating counters. Pereira exploited that, landing heavy strikes from mid-distance just before clinch attempts. The crowd saw a fighter trying to force a game he was already behind in. Furthermore, Ankalaev's landmark strength is control and timing, but Pereira elevated pressure, filled angles, and denied transitions. Ankalaev had fewer clean weapons to respond with. In effect, the champion's toolset was blunted by Pereira's aggression and smart adjustments. Ankalaev's downfall wasn't just technical, it was psychological. Pereira's opening pace was suffocating, more intense than in their first fight. Ankalaev's entire identity as a fighter relies on control, setting traps, dictating rhythm, slowing chaos. But Pereira didn't give him time to breathe. He opened with inside low kicks, fast hand combinations, and cutting movement that broke Ankalaev's stance. Within 40 seconds, the Dagestani's composure slipped. Every time Ankalaev tried to establish range, Pereira's jab found him. Every time he tried to clinch, Pereira's elbows punished him. Analysts noted that the first clean shot Pereira landed wasn't even devastating. It was demoralizing. Ankalaev's poker face cracked. His eyes shifted. His steps grew cautious. The biggest mistake? He never reset. A composed Ankalaev keeps distance, makes reads, and counterattacks. Here, he panicked. When Pereira landed a clean counter left, Ankalaev immediately changed levels. Not out of strategy, but instinct. That single moment handed Pereira top position. Once on the ground, the power dynamic flipped entirely. Pereira's ground and pound was short, brutal, and accurate. Ankalaev covered up, tried to roll, but every motion invited another elbow. The referee stepped in at 1:20, saving him from further damage. The fight was over, but the analysis had only begun. What happened behind the scenes that made Ankalaev look so unlike himself? In the post-fight press conference, reports from Ankalaev's camp admitted their game plan assumed Pereira would fight defensively, conserving energy and avoiding the ground. Instead, Pereira came in heavier, faster, and with improved wrestling defense. Ankalaev's coaches trained him to grind out a slow fight. They never prepared him for a sprint. Training logs revealed that Ankalaev's final camp was plagued by limited sparring. He'd taken damage to his right knee earlier in the summer and focused more on positional drills than live scrambles. That decision backfired. Pereira's aggression forced scrambles, the very exchanges Ankalaev hadn't trained for. Moreover, analysts pointed to a deeper flaw: predictability. Ankalaev's rhythm has been his strength, but also his tell. Pereira studied those patterns obsessively after their first fight. When Ankalaev switched stances or fainted low, Pereira didn't react. He preempted. By the time Ankalaev realized he was being read like a book, it was too late. For fighters at this level, tiny misreads decide fights. But Ankalaev's team underestimated Pereira's adaptability and overestimated their own formula. In elite combat, arrogance disguised as confidence kills careers. And beneath strategy, there's fatigue, mental, emotional, physical. Let's talk about what pressure does to even the best. Magomed Ankalaev's stoic persona has always made him look unbreakable. But inside every disciplined fighter lives a fragile balance between composure and collapse. For years, Ankalaev had fought with an air of inevitability. He'd never been finished in the UFC, but that comfort can be dangerous. It numbs urgency. Sources close to his team described a flat energy in the locker room before UFC 320. No tension, no fire. Ankalaev reportedly joked with teammates, saying, "Same fight, same result." That lack of edge was visible from his first step into the cage. He looked calm, too calm. Meanwhile, Pereira's eyes burned with focus. He'd rebuilt himself from loss. Ankalaev was defending routine. Physically, Ankalaev appeared heavy on his feet, possibly due to an overcut or residual fatigue from an intense weight cut. His reaction time lagged just enough to let Pereira find rhythm. Fighters often say that when you underestimate danger, your body feels half a second slower, enough to turn a counter into a collapse. In the octagon, perfection doesn't mean absence of error. It means recovery. Ankalaev didn't recover. The moment Pereira reversed his takedown, Ankalaev froze, too shocked that his own weapon had been used against him. That's where his aura cracked, not from pain, but disbelief. And disbelief is what feeds doubt. The one thing you can't afford when facing Alex Pereira. To understand Ankalaev's failure, you have to study Pereira's revenge. He didn't just show up to fight, he arrived to reclaim something stolen. Every punch, every sprawl was premeditated. He knew Ankalaev's habits, tendencies, even his reactions under stress. Pereira's team built a blueprint for mental warfare. They'd noticed how Ankalaev slows fights with patience, then strikes when the opponent overcommits. So Pereira flipped the script. He didn't overcommit once. He advanced in measured bursts, never breaking stance, never lunging. His attacks forced Ankalaev to abandon his setup rhythm. Within seconds, the Dagestani system looked human again. The ground and pound that finished the fight wasn't random aggression. Pereira postured between each elbow, targeting transitions. Every strike had intention. Even as Ankalaev covered, Pereira adjusted angles, hammering from sides. That composure under pressure exposed the gulf between them. One man reacting, one man orchestrating. Pereira later told MMA Fighting, "I just trusted the work. I was patient." That patience was precisely what Ankalaev lost. For the first time in his UFC career, the Russian was forced into chaos. And chaos is where Pereira thrives. Yet even legends learn from collapse. And the aftermath revealed a humbled but calculating Ankalaev. In the post-fight press conference, Ankalaev looked composed but broken. He congratulated Pereira and refused excuses, saying, "I made mistakes. He was better tonight." Still, he hinted at a deeper problem. "I couldn't find my balance early. My legs didn't feel right." That sparked speculation that his knee injury hadn't fully healed. Coaches confirmed that Ankalaev's mobility was compromised, particularly in lateral movement, a critical factor against Pereira's pressure. Analysts reviewing slow-motion footage noticed his right foot slipping during the scramble that led to the finish. A tiny misstep, but enough to surrender dominant position. The next day, Dagestani media criticized the training approach, saying Ankalaev relied too heavily on wrestling drills while ignoring transition scrambles and conditioning. Even Khabib Nurmagomedov, though not directly commenting, reposted a quote about pride-blinding preparation. Still, the defeat doesn't erase Ankalaev's credentials. He remains one of the most technically disciplined fighters at light heavyweight, but it exposed something fans hadn't seen before: vulnerability. For the first time, the machine looked human, and the aura of invincibility cracked. What happens next for Ankalaev, and can he rebuild his confidence after such a short, devastating loss? Ankalaev's comeback will depend on humility. Great fighters don't reinvent themselves after victories, they do it after humiliation. Insiders say he's already back in Dagestan, training quietly, focusing on core fundamentals: footwork, reaction time, energy pacing. The Russian mentality values stoicism, not excuses, and Ankalaev's silence since the fight speaks volumes. To recover, he must rediscover what made him special: patience, timing, and precision. decision. The first fight showed his blueprint. The second showed his blind spots. The next chapter will depend on whether he can merge those two versions of himself. Pereira exposed the limits of predictability. Ankalaev's next test is unpredictability, becoming a fighter who adapts instead of repeating. Fighters like him don't fade easily. The fire that drove him to the title still burns. But for the first time, the world saw him question himself. And in combat sports, that can either destroy you or forge something unbreakable. Magomed Ankalaev didn't lose because he was weak. He lost because, for once, he met someone who refused to play his game. Pereira's aggression stripped away his rhythm, and beneath that calm exterior, the cracks appeared. This fight wasn't chaos. It was a mirror reflecting every habit Ankalaev had built. He'll return stronger. He always does. But October 5th will remain a reminder. In the cage, dominance is temporary, adaptation eternal. And sometimes, even the most disciplined warrior must fall once to learn how to rise again.